All right, everyone, it's 6:01. We're going to go ahead and start tonight's meeting. Let's please take roll.
Commissioner Lydé.
Here.
Commissioner Calandra. Commissioner Diaz. Commissioner Kreiner. Commissioner Sturgill.
Present.
Vice Chair Bray.
Here.
Chair Vane.
Here. Thank you. We'll go ahead and if everyone please stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll go ahead and read procedures for tonight's meeting. This meeting is being conducted in person and electronically. For each matter considered by the Commission, there will first be a staff presentation, followed by a presentation from the project applicant. Testimony from supporters of the project will then be taken, followed by testimony from those in opposition. The applicant will have the right to a final rebuttal presentation prior to closing the public hearing. In accordance with Section 13 of Article 2 of the Planning Commission Rules and Regulations governing length of public debate, all public testimony from those in support and opposition of the project will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The 3 lights on the podium next to the microphone will indicate the amount of time remaining for the speaker. The green light will be turned on when the speaker begins. The yellow light will come on with the soft bell ring when 1 minute is remaining. The speaker should be completing the testimony by the time the red light comes on with the final bell indicating time has expired. All in-person public testimony must be presented to the Commission at the podium. Any testimony that references race, religion, ethnicity, economic status, national origin, or any other classification protected under state or federal law in a derogatory manner shall be deemed irrelevant and will not be considered by the Commission in making its land use determinations. If you challenge these land use matters in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised in oral or written testimony or before the close of the hearing. Let's go ahead and with the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Good evening, Chair Vang, Commissioners, Philip Segrist, Planning and Development Department. Staff has no changes to tonight's agenda.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any commissions who would like to comment or any motion to accept the agenda?
I'll move to accept the agenda. I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Bray, a second by Commissioner Lydé. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Agenda is approved. Under consent calendar, we do have meeting minutes for June 18th, 2025. We have any comments or motion from the Commission to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Bray. We have a second by Commissioner Calandra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion's approved. Do we have any reports from the Commission?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
Thank you. So I just want to inform the public there is a huge Measure Cs coming up for the public. In fact, I have attended a couple of meetings. All the people who are complaining about the roads, potholes. So I would like to encourage our Fresno County people, especially the city of Fresno people, to please attend those meetings because those meetings are very essential. You need to share your opinion, and you need to be part of the talking as they're having a lot of meetings for the Measure Cs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other reports? All right, we'll go ahead and move to new matters. This is item ID 24949, consideration of text amendment application number P2500974.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I am Eric Young. I'm with the Planning and Development Department. Tonight before you is the proposed text amendment application number P25-00974 related to drive-through facilities. The proposed text amendment was initiated by the Planning and Development Director for the purposes of providing flexibility for existing drive-through facilities required to relocate due to property being acquired as a result of a public work project. In short, this would remove hurdles for businesses that are affected by city projects. Before I explain the changes, it's appropriate to go over the current development code to help provide the context. Here on the screen, we have Table 15-1102 of the Development Code, which provides land use regulations for each of the 3 mixed-use districts: neighborhood mixed use, corridor center mixed use, and regional mixed use. The table identifies what uses are permitted, conditionally permitted, or just outright prohibited. It also identifies specific limitations and additional regulations for specific uses and activities as highlighted. Currently, drive-through facilities are permitted in each of the mixed-use districts with a conditional use permit, but drive-throughs are also subject to specific limitation number 15, which prohibits them from being located within 100 feet of a planned or existing bus rapid transit station, and prohibits them from being located between a building and a sidewalk. In addition, drive-throughs located in mixed-use districts are also subject to applicable mixed-use development standards, as well as additional regulations specific to drive-throughs found in Section 15-2728. Section 15-2728 provides additional regulations and standards for how drive-throughs are located, developed, operated. This includes separation requirements from residential uses and other drive-through facilities, landscaping and screening requirements, standards for menu boards and intercoms, and site and building design. As you can see in the highlighted section above, there's a separation requirement from other drive-through facilities where one can't be located within 400 feet of that other drive-through. However, there are a few exceptions to this requirement if the facility is located in the CH Commercial Highway Zone District or within 1,000 feet of a freeway exit. Shifting to what's proposed to be changed with this text amendment, the text amendment proposes to amend specific limitation number 15 in Table 15-1102, where it would provide an exception to that 100-foot bus rapid transit station separation requirement. Specifically, the code would read, not allowed, A, within 100 feet of a planned or existing bus rapid transit station, except for projects involving an existing drive-through that is required to relocate as a result of taking by eminent domain, and where the new location is within 1 mile of the original location, and where the new establishment complies with and without deviation from all applicable property development standards. And B, not allowed between a building and a street. The text amendment also proposes to amend Section 15-2728 by adding an additional exception to the drive-through separation requirements. As proposed, the 400-foot separation requirement would not apply to projects involving an existing drive-through facility that is required to relocate as a result of eminent domain, and where the new location is within 1 mile from the original location. One example would be the Blackstone and McKinley grade separation project, which is a public work project, and it will be impacting several properties and existing businesses which are located on the corners of that intersection. 2 of which are drive-through businesses, and they are located directly on the north side of McKinley and on the east and west sides of Blackstone, right there on the corner. These businesses, Carl's Jr. on the left and Taco Bell on the right, will be required to relocate, and this text amendment would provide some flexibility in where they can relocate to. Three of the 4 active council district project review committees considered the proposed text amendment. Staff also received one public comment letter, which was also presented to the committees. That comment letter is included in your staff report as Exhibit E. To summarize, in an effort to support businesses that are affected by a public work project, this text amendment would remove hurdles that are currently in place in the development code by providing flexibility in where affected businesses can relocate to. It is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission adopt the related environmental assessment and recommend approval of the text amendment application number P25-00974. That concludes staff presentation. Here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Ms.
I have a question about the letter that we received that cited examples of drive-throughs that were located between a building and a sidewalk and how they are permitted. And why is that permission being taken away? It seemed like there were some logical solutions to that. If you're worried about people stepping into the drive-through, a 3-foot block wall, landscaping. Explain that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, good evening. Philip Segrist, Planning and Development Department. Some of the examples that were provided in that letter were businesses that were approved under the prior development code, in which those cases it did allow for drive-through facilities to be located pretty close to the sidewalk, where the drive-through aisle would be between the building and the back of the sidewalk. And under the new development code, the mixed-use development standards, it prohibits that. It really wants to encourage pedestrian-oriented development, have buildings located directly up at the back of the sidewalk, and have drive-through facilities to the rear of that. And there are some examples of projects that have been approved under the current development code along the BRT corridor, along Blackstone, that do comply with the development standards, just the mixed-use standards, as well as the existing development standards specific to drive-throughs.
Because I can think of another one on Herndon, the CVS, and there, if I'm not mistaken, there is a wall, but it is right up to the street.
So I would add, that's not in a mixed-use zone district. So that's in a commercial zone district, not in mixed use. This text amendment does not add this regulation. This regulation already exists. All we're doing is allowing for a business that is required to relocate to have more flexibility in being closer to another establishment and closer to a BRT station. None of the other development standards would change. So we're not adding new requirements.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to come in and put in a drive-through, and could they apply for an exception?
No, so this change would only apply for relocated businesses. I think they gave us 2 examples of ones that are currently needing to relocate, but there are other ones that could. So could a business that wanted to deviate from the development standards, could they apply for a planned development to make the findings that this is a better development by putting the drive-through between the building and the sidewalk? Yes, they could apply for a planned development to deviate from the development standards, but there are very clear standards that need to be made. Essentially, when you do a planned development, I think of it as design your own development standards, right? You're coming in and you're saying, I can't build this vision in my head, using the exact standards that are in the code. I want to make changes. I want to deviate from maybe setbacks or heights or parking spaces or some development standard, right? And so I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, here are all the things that I would like to change that are not in the development code. So I'm doing a planned development. But you have to show through evidence in the record that this is better than what would have been in the code. So you have to show that it's better to have that drive-through between the sidewalk and the building than behind the building. So they just need to make those findings, and they need to be upheld by evidence in the record.
Any other questions?
Yes, I did have a question. I have actually two comments. I know you had mentioned the Wendy's and the Taco Bell that are in that corner. Are they actually leaving? If so, what's going in that place? And then I think from what I'm hearing everybody say is that this is more of a big picture to make this an area because of all the residential housing that's going in, to make it more pedestrian friendly, to make it something to where we're encouraging everybody that's in that area to feel free to move about perhaps a bit safer. Is that what the big picture is? I think we're going towards that, but we're not really putting it out there. I think that would help.
Can't really speak on behalf of the capital project on the intent, but to answer your first question, yes, those businesses on the four corners would be required to relocate. I know there's the smog shop on the south west side of the intersection and the service station and convenience store. Those will be need to relocate, and with the grade separation, it's to provide a safe undercrossing for not only vehicles but pedestrians to cross over the railroad tracks. Can't really speak on behalf of other planned development of actual projects that will occur, but again, any projects that do come in, they would need to comply with the applicable mixed-use development standards, and that would be consistent with ground floor commercial and residential on top, what you typically see, and some of the new development, which is currently kind of at that intersection, a little to the south and on the west side.
Okay, so this could potentially be like a tipping point or a catalyst to get that going as well.
Potentially, but I kind of want to refocus on the item that's in front of you. We use that as an example, not as we're not reviewing a project. We're reviewing kind of at that high level text amendment. So any kind of project, whether it was Veterans Boulevard or high-speed rail or this particular, the McKinley Blackstone grade separation to provide, safety, or some other project. So if there are certain streets in Fresno that are on the BRT corridor, one is the Blackstone line, so the Fax 1 line. The other is along Cesar Chavez Boulevard. So those are our two primary BRT routes, and where you would find a BRT station. So any major public works project that would require a taking or require a business to move that had a drive-through, a bank, a pharmacy, a fast food restaurant, those could then have the ability to go in closer maybe to another business that they wouldn't normally have, right? So we're trying to provide a little bit of flexibility for those businesses so they can stay close to where they were previously, because they typically have a customer base. Whether you're a CVS or a Bank of America or a Wendy's, right? You have a customer base, and if you move more than a mile away, you're probably gonna shift that customer base or potentially lose some of your customers. So trying to keep them nearby, giving them flexibility that they could locate next door to another business that had a drive-through is really what we're trying to achieve here, to provide more ability for that business, instead of to leave altogether or to go out of business, is to allow them to move nearby and have flexibility that they wouldn't otherwise under the code.
Thank you. I think on a granular level, it's really important for us to have these conversations so we get on record what the goal is or what we're doing this for or why these changes are made, especially to the business owners that may feel like they're affected.
Thank you.
So we're really just trying to accommodate. That's what we're trying to do. Right. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll go ahead and go out to the public. Any individuals who would like to speak and support? I see none. We'll go ahead and go to the public. Any individuals who would like to speak in opposition? None. Close all public comments. We'll bring it back to the commission. Do we have any comments, any additional questions, any motion?
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Commissioner Calandra. We have a second by Vice Chair Bray. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion's approved. Thank you. We'll go ahead and on the next item on the agenda, we're going to have a workshop on the basics of annexation.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Juan Lar with the Planning and Development Department. And today's staff is presenting an annexation basics workshop to provide some information and some background on annexations so that the Commission is familiar with as these annexations come towards the Commission for recommendation to the City Council. Okay, so the first slide here is an agenda of what I'll be going over through the workshop. And first is going to be the SOI, what is an annexation, the pre-application process, the city application process, and then the LAFCO process. So to start, I did want to touch base on the sphere of influence because I think it's important to understand the concept behind the sphere of influence to actually understand annexations. So the sphere of influence, as you see on your screen is the red outline around what appears to be the city limits and some incorporated areas within the city. And so in the gray is the city limits, and that the area that's not gray is the unincorporated area. So the sphere of influence is basically a plan for growth that the city has, and it's based on a 20 to 30-year planning horizon, which ultimately means that the city in the future sees itself annexing everything within the sphere within that 20 to 30-year planning horizon. I do want to touch a little bit on the city and county MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding, and within that memorandum of understanding, there is a tax sharing agreement. So when the city does go through an annexation, there's some taxes that are shared because the county does provide some services, whether it's incorporated in city limits or unincorporated. Within that tax sharing agreement, there's some standards of annexation that we have to abide by. And the county reviews the annexations to make sure they're consistent with the memorandum of understanding. So what is an annexation? The annexation to me is a process of incorporating, annexing a portion of land, an area, whatever it may be, into city limits. Now, one might ask, how is an annexation? How does it start? Where does this start? And really, it starts with property or developer interest. They reach out to the city, they reach out to city staff, and want to start the process or inquire about starting the process of annexing for a particular development. Another way that an annexation is initiated is through the city and county referral process. So whenever there's a development proposed within the city's sphere, but it's still incorporated, they can start their proceeding with the county. But we have an agreement with the county staff that once that's done, they sent us a referral for us to analyze and to make the decision whether we're bringing in that subject property or not. And in those cases, as you see in the sphere, there may be a property that is proposed for development and wants to annex, but it's 2 miles away. And one of the conditions or one of the standards of annexation is that this proposal be contiguous to city limits. So in some cases, it's somewhat difficult if you're planning to propose a development that's 2 miles away from city limits. It's really hard to include 2 miles of property within your annexation, and in those cases, there is the case that we let the applicant develop within the unincorporated boundary of the sphere, but to city standards. And so the first process of the pre-application, when staff gets in either interest from the property owner or actually a filed application or a referral, is to confirm a logical boundary. And that is within the standards of annexation to confirm a logical boundary. It is also a standard within CKH, which is the law that annexations were created under, and that's managed by the local agency formation commission. So the project area would be the one in the red, and the logical boundary that was confirmed is the outline in the blue. And how is that confirmed? Well, city staff will meet with county staff along with the local agency formation, which is LAFCO staff, and confirm a logical boundary where we all agree that this is the most logical boundary that will work for the developer and the city. And really, one of the reasons is that we want to make these boundaries logical and not have and avoid irregular boundaries, just like, let me bring that up here, just like we see on the west side of the city, in city limits. So really we want to discourage any peninsulas, any islands, because that creates some service deficiencies. It may mean that Fresno PD has to go through county islands or county peninsulas to get to city limits, and so really we want to avoid those irregular boundaries or islands, and that's why we create those logical boundaries that in some cases include property owners outside of the development area. Now, once a logical boundary is confirmed, staff will review and reach out to the registered voters and the elections department office to get those registered voter data and to confirm if the annexation is inhabited or uninhabited. And really what inhabited means is that more than 12 registered voters live within the annexation boundary. Uninhabited means that it's less than 12 registered voters live in the annexation boundary. Now, the reason why staff confirms that is because there is the opportunity for property owners within the annexation boundary to protest. And really that happens within the LAFCO process that I'll touch on at the end of the workshop. But we look at that because there are protest thresholds. For an uninhabited annexation, if landowners owning more than 50% of the land value within the annexation protest proceedings, the annexation can be terminated. For an annexation that's inhabited, meaning there's more than 12 registered voters, the protest thresholds are as follows. If more than 25% of the registered voters within the annexation boundary protest, then the annexation is placed on the election ballot, and a simple majority will decide if the annexation proceeds or is terminated. If 50% or more of the registered voters within the annexation boundary protest, then proceedings are terminated. And really that's why staff gets that information beforehand. We want to know if this is an uninhabited annexation or uninhabited. So the next step would be for the pre-application process, the applicant is subject to have a neighborhood meeting for those within the annexation boundary. And so, we provide them with the mailing list. They put together their neighborhood meeting, and the neighborhood meeting is conducted in accordance with Fresno Municipal Code Section 15-5006, which outlines, when the neighborhood meeting should happen, what days it shouldn't happen on a holiday, who should be included in the notice. Now, once that's done, and they've satisfied what they need for us to accept the application, typically, they satisfy the annexation application checklist, along with the development proposal checklist, and the pre-zone. So annexations are always tied to a pre-zone. In most cases, there are some, rare cases where the pre-zone happened previously, and now they're coming forth with just the annexation. But in most cases, the annexation and pre-zone are tied together and also come with the development of the property. So essentially, it's 3 applications. So once those checklists are satisfied, staff is able to accept those applications and start the processing. So once we start the processing, we gather all the comments from outside agencies, internal departments, and we start getting ready for introduction of this item to the Planning Commission for recommendation to City Council. Once it's recommended to City Council, then the City Council either approves or denies the annexation, the development permit, and the pre-zone. If approved, the annexation is now ready to be submitted to the Local Agency Formation Commission, because ultimately LAFCO is the deciding body of the annexations. Once we get that, we send a notice of intent to the county that notifies them that we're ready to submit an annexation to LAFCO. And the reason why we do that is within our MOU and tax sharing agreement that we have with the county. We typically let them know, hey, we're going to submit this application to LAFCO. Here's our notice of intent. What they do once we submit that notice of intent, they make sure that the annexation is consistent with the tax sharing agreement and the memorandum of understanding. So they provide a notice that, yes, the annexation is consistent or it's not consistent, and then we have to look into what's not consistent, revise, and make sure that it is consistent with the MOU and the tax sharing agreement. Once we receive that letter, we're ready to submit to the Local Agency Formation Commission. And once we submit to the Local Agency Formation Commission, here's the checklist that we go through for a complete application with LAFCO. Once they get the complete application, they analyze the annexation, they go through their LAFCO process, make sure that all the items they need are included in the application. If we do satisfy that checklist, then a certificate of filing is issued that lets us know that LAFCO is taking this for consideration in front of the commission. They provide us with a date and schedule. If approved by the LAFCO Commission, the annexation is ready for recordation and completion. After the 30-day reconsideration period that LAFCO has to abide by, they may go and record and complete the annexation. Really, that's kind of the final process for the annexation to be incorporated into the city. Once it's incorporated, we can move forward with the development and whatever pre-zoning, and the annexation is now complete. LAFCO will send us completion documents once recorded, and now it's part of the city. Now we can update our city boundary. Now we can update our city limits to show the new and recorded annexation. And really, that LAFCO step is the final step of the annexation process, and open for any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Is it very often that LAFCO denies an annexation?
A little bit of my background. I used to be an analyst at the Fresno Local Agency Formation Commission before I started my career here with the city. And really, it was very rare that an annexation is denied. There are some cases where an annexation is denied, and typically it may be from protests that's received from those landowners or from those registered voters. Or the boundary, the LAFCO Commission does have the option of revising the annexation boundary, maybe to exclude some property owners that don't want to be included, or exclude some registered voters that don't want to be included, or to include additional properties to conform a logical boundary. So it's rare that it's denied, but in some cases it may be.
But, when you say, because of protests, people have had an opportunity to vote.
Well, through our process, registered voters, landowners do have the opportunity to state their concerns. In some cases, the annexation may move forward. The LAFCO process is a little bit different. They really do count, the protest proceeding, the protest forms that they receive. So really, they go through and for example, if an annexation is going through the LAFCO process, they receive a protest notice. They kick it into what's called a conducting authority proceeding, where they analyze the protests received. And so in those cases, they really count, hey, we received this many registered voters that protest or this many landowners. Does that either send the annexation into election, or does that terminate proceedings? So their process in counting protests or counting what's submitted is fairly different than what we do here. They actually have, they have to have protest thresholds, and they really need to abide by those protests.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I just have a comment. One of the things I've noticed, for instance, out in the SEDA, is before there's ever any of this annexation talk, the school district leads the development. So, for instance, in the SEDA, Clovis Schools is putting a huge mega school out there. So that's really the beginning of the annexation, informally, the beginning of the annexation, because they wouldn't put a school out there if they didn't think there was going to be a lot of houses around it. So I think they lead, the schools often lead in having an annexation happen by putting a school out in an area where there's no houses.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Where I think schools do trigger housing. In that particular case, that school is being developed without being annexed into the city, so it's being developed in the unincorporated area.
But they're not going to, unless a lot of houses get built
Correct.
out there, they're not going to put a school
Correct.
out there. So
Yes.
it's pretty clear.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think they'd put a school out there thinking that there wasn't going to be any students to attend the school. So yeah, you are correct. They're schools are looking for areas that in the future there's going to be some housing there.
They're the ones that almost precipitate the annexation originally.
In some cases, yes, definitely.
Go ahead.
All right, first of all, thank you for the workshop. You brought up west of 99. Yeah, there are a lot of county islands. Literally it's like city, county, city, county. There are people, usually they think about, like, for example, there's a Tilly Elementary on Clinton and Valentine Avenue. That's a brand new school that opened up about a year plus ago in Central Unified. So across the street, there's a city behind it, then there's county in front of it. So if an owner wants to annex into the city, do they have any benefit to it, or are there any benefit?
Yeah, I think there are benefits to annexation to the city. I think that when annexations happen, there's new services that are being provided. There are sidewalks that are being put in. There are new parks. There's Fresno PD. There's Fresno City Fire that you actually get included in the city limits. So those are the services that are providing. Typically. If there's a map that's being annexed, there's some development that's going on. They have to put in new streets, they have to put in the sidewalks, those types of things. So I think there are very much so some benefits to being annexed into the city, because typically, Fresno County isn't going out there and going to put out in sidewalks. They're not going to improve the streets in a sense.
But another question is it easier to annex while the city is doing it, like when it's kind of recommended, or is it easier for a property owner to come to the city? So which process is more easy for the people?
I think it depends. So I think it is easy for someone to come in and talk to staff if they have interest in annexation. We provide them with the process and how to go about that, and really they can come in and annex. But there are cases, like I mentioned, where we have a portion of property that wants to develop and be annexed, but the boundary isn't logical, right? So we include additional properties to make it a logical boundary. So in those cases, those property owners can come in with that annexation. And in some cases, that fee's being taken care of by the developer. So it just kind of depends, right? I mean, if they have interest in annexing, of course, we're happy to help. We're happy to kind of go through the annexation process. And if they'd like, submit an application and we'll go through. It doesn't always mean that has to be a development tied to it. In some cases, you can come in and annex to the city.
No, I'm just talking about an individual person, like somebody who owns maybe 1 or 2 acres, like an individual family.
Yeah.
Are there any financial obligations that they have to obligate by
Well,
in order to come into the city?
I think that, so we do have, application fees that they'd have to pay, those types of things, connecting to city water, connecting to city sewer. So there are some little financial obligations, like paying application fees, and then, the connection costs to city water and sewer.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying, where they have to kind of be within that sphere of influence, where it's not too far.
Exactly. I think they'd have to be in the sphere of influence and hopefully contiguous to city limits.
Any questions?
Oh, sorry, just one question. If a developer or a landowner wanted to go through the annexation process, what is the cost, or what can somebody expect?
So off the top of my head, we do have a cost for uninhabited and inhabited annexations. I just because I was working on an inhabited annexation. So there's the annexation fee, there's the development fee, and then there's the pre-zone fee. So off the top of my head, the application process or the application fee for an inhabited annexation is about $12,000.
Okay, and then with all the Fresno amenities, is there any increase in the taxes or anything that they should expect with that?
It's my understanding that there's a slight increase on the taxes for the police and fire tax that we have, but that's my understanding that there would be a minimal increase because of the police and fire tax that we have in the city.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The fact that you were just able to do that presentation without looking at any notes.
Of course.
Appreciate you. You seem very competent in it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We have any reports from the Secretary?
Sure. And again, thank you, Juan. We are very lucky to have you on our team. So I just wanted to give you kind of initial fair warning. You need to start reading the West Area Neighborhood Specific Plan and the EIR that are on our plans and projects underway. You were given notice when it was posted on the website. We can resend that out to you. We anticipate that will be coming to this body either in late August or early September. The specific plans are long, EIRs are long, so just to give you a little bit of early warning for that reading. We also will anticipate that the Central Southeast specific plan will come probably in the October timeframe, and the Tower District specific plan update in the November timeframe. So just starting to think about your bedside reading materials, right? So lots of great plans coming forward for your consideration. Just wanted to get a head start on that, because I know when your packets come out, it's a short time to read everything, and I don't want you to feel that you were rushed in reading those documents. But the first one coming up is West Area.
I would appreciate if you'd send that again.
Sure. Yeah, we can send that out to all of the commissioners. I see Carrie nodding, and so she will make sure that you all get those links again.
Perfect. So what you're saying is summer is coming to an end.
Yes, your summer vacation is coming to end. You have a big, long reading list that you will need to have before you start classes in the fall, right, Professor?
Love it.
Thank you. Yes.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, do we have any?
Yes.
Would it be possible to have just a little update on the whole CEQA thing that the state repealed? that made it not
We-
apply to certain projects?
Sure. We are actually evaluating that and reviewing that. Our assistant director and the planning managers are going through that with a fine-tooth comb to see whether or not it really does this magical wand thing that everybody says that it does. I am exceedingly skeptical. So based on my initial read, it doesn't really change a lot. It sounds magical, but it really isn't. So we are in the process of reviewing that and getting maybe a cheat sheet together. And so perhaps at our next planning commission meeting in early August, maybe we'll have that ready and we could do a quick summary, maybe not a detailed workshop, but a quick summary of what we've learned to date. But my initial read is it is not the panacea that has been proposed. It is, so.
Do we have any unscheduled oral communications? See none. 6:46, meeting is adjourned. Everyone, have a wonderful evening.